Hello and welcome to another episode of Murder, Mystery, and Cold Case Radio Theater, the Girl Scout Camp Murders. Today I'm bringing to you a horrifying case of murder, but not just any murder, but that of 3 young girls who started their day out filled with expectations of fun and excitement. Most parents who can are willing to drop off their children at camps for a brief stay during summers without a second thought, thinking that they are in good hands with counselors and staff. But on June 12th of 1977, a horrific event took place at a Girl Scout camp called Camp Scott in Mayes County in Oklahoma. This camp, situated on the Snake Creek, had been in operation since as early as the 1920s. Counselors and staff had been preparing all day for the first session to begin. Nothing unusual was noted that night that would have given a clue that anything was wrong at camp. No one could have suspected that anything was about to go so very wrong, or was there? Later that afternoon, the very first of the campers were arriving, and they all spent the afternoon and the evening getting to know each other and sitting around campfires, singing songs, and having marshmallows. Then when the rain started to come, around 7 p.m., the counselors sent all the girls to their respective tents because the thunderstorms were starting to pick up. 3 girls, Lori Farmer, age 8, Michelle Gousset, age 9, and Doris Denise Gilner, age 10, shared a tent at the far end of the campsite. The tents, which were canvas sitting on wooden structures, were what the kids would be calling home for the next 2 weeks. The 3 girls from Tulsa and Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, did not know each other. The counselors had no qualms about the 3 girls being in this tent alone, as they were all known as being quiet and shy and not at all troublemakers. You see, the tent that they shared was the Kiowa tent, which was near the camp showers and was the furthest tent away from the counselor's tent. So far away, in fact, that the tent could not be seen behind the showers, making it the hardest to monitor, leaving the girls basically on their own. Now let's take a moment to back up to an event that occurred just a couple of months before the first day of camp. During a training session at the camp for the counselors, one of the counselors had returned to her tent after a really long day of activities and preparation for the first day of camp to find that someone had been in her tent. Her personal belongings were out of place. Her clothes and other things had been gone through. She had a box of donuts on her dresser, but someone had eaten them. When she opened the box, before throwing it away, to her astonishment, in the bottom of the box, there was a message scrawled. The note in the bottom of the box said that he intended to murder 3 campers during the upcoming Girl Scout camping session. The counselor immediately took the note to the camp director, so that everybody knew what was written in the box. But because summer camps are known for scary stories, the director disregarded the message, nothing more than a cruel prank, and ignored the note. Maybe if he had not, the three girls would still be alive today, or maybe not. I will let you mull that over. If the staff members were more alert, or things had been handled differently, maybe a different and happier outcome would have come into play. On Monday, June 13th, 1977, at about 6 a.m., a camp counselor, Carla Wilhite, left her tent to head to the showers, to get a start on her shower early before the other campers and counselors got up. Everyone had reportedly slept through the night as everyone was exhausted from move-in day. It was a busy time for counselors and campers both. There wasn't a sound to be heard, but if there was, the sounds of the thunder and pouring rain drowned them out. She noted as she passed by each of the tents, it appeared from the outside that everyone was still asleep in their tents. Now remember, Tent 8 is beyond the showers and mostly hidden by the showers and trees. The showers were located on the trail called Locust Grove, and as the counselor approached the trail, she saw what appeared to be a sleeping bag by the oak tree. When she got closer, the counselor realized that there was what appeared to be a camper on top of it. Wilhite knew before she got too close that whoever was on the sleeping bag was already deceased. When she got closer to check on the person, she realized she was looking at the body of 10-year-old Denise Milner. Along with Denise Milner were two other sleeping bags, which seemed to have bodies inside of them. She knew that these would be the bodies of Denise's fellow tent mates, 9-year-old Michelle Gousset and 8-year-old Lori Farmer. Reports say that Wilhite quickly contacted and informed her fellow counselors and camp directors of her findings of the brutal murders she had just found. The camp directors immediately contacted the police. The other children were taken to another part of the camp and waited for buses to pick them up and take them safely to meet their families. It didn't take long for the news to spread about the assault and brutal murders of the young girls to Tulsa and surrounding areas as families met the buses and waited to see their daughters step one by one off the buses. One by one, the girls stepped off the buses to greet the waiting parents, who less than 24 hours ago had happily sent their children off to enjoy 2 weeks filled with swimming, campfire, games, and singing songs. Instead, their lives had been turned unknowingly upside down, as the girls at this time still did not know that 3 of their campmates were not returning home with them. Instead, their bodies lie brutally murdered under an oak tree along Locust Grove Path. The families of Lori, Michelle, and Denise waited among the other families, not knowing that it was their daughters that would not be returning. After the last girl was reunited with their family, the families of the 3 girls were left alone in the parking lot, grieving the loss of their daughters that day. The information that can be gathered from DNA is far less than what can be gathered in 1977 than there is today. They were able to determine that the girls were attacked and assaulted by ways that I cannot say on YouTube, under the cover of the storm while all the other campers and counselors slept. The murderer had done exactly what the note and the box of donuts had said. After assaulting the 3 young campers, he brutally murdered them. He stuffed Lori and Michelle into their sleeping bags, took them out to the tree, and placed them there. Then he not only took Denise's body out, but strategically placed her on top of her sleeping bag, and on top of her chest he had placed a large square red flashlight. Some reports say there was a fingerprint on the flashlight, but that fingerprint was unable to be used. Also found in the tent was a size 9.5 footprint in the blood, some bodily fluid, and some hair follicle samples. The blood was thick on the floor of the tent. In the next weeks, police searched the nearby woods of the 400 acres of the camp for more clues that may lead them to the man that murdered the girls. The police interviewed the counselors and all of the people in the surrounding area for clues that may give them an idea as to who may have done this. There were dozens of leads to follow up on, but on June 23rd, they had started on one of the biggest manhunts in Oklahoma's history. The manhunt for Jean Leroy Hart, whom they suspected as the murderer, began. Hart was an escapee from the Mays County Jail. He had escaped for the second time from this jail 4 years ago and was still on the run. He was 33 years old at the time of the murder. He was in jail for conviction of burglary and the assaults in the same manner of the girls of 2 pregnant women. It was said that during the initial search, a cave was found, and in it were items believed to have been stolen from the camp, among other things, and a notation on the wall of the cave that read 77-6-17, June 17th, 77. The killer was here. Bye-bye, fools. Authorities say they were positive that Hart was living in the cave and that he was closely connected to the area, as he had family members that lived near the camp in the Mays County area and in the area of the night of the murders. On April 6, 1978, almost 1 year after the killings of the 3 girls, an anonymous tip led them to the possible location of Jean Hart. This tip led them to the home of a man named Sam Pigeon. His home was in a remote area near Locust Grove, just 37 miles from Camp Scott. It was said that Hart was in an old shack on the property at Pigeon's home. They placed Hart under arrest for the murders of Lori Farmer, age 8, Michelle Gousset, age 9, and Doris Denise Milner, age 10. In March of 1979, the murder trial began. His defense attorney, Gavin Isaacs, who had just met him for the first time, said that Hart kept saying, "I want you to know one thing. I didn't kill those Girl Scouts." In Pryor, Oklahoma, In a courtroom on the third floor of the courthouse, Judge William Whistler oversaw the case. Prosecution presented the case with all of the evidence they had to prosecute Hart with the murders and convince the jurors that Hart was guilty of the June 12, 1977 Girl Scout murders. Even though the local officials and all of Mayes County residents were certain that Hart was in fact the man that did these horrible things, it was up to the jury to make that decision. But there was no real proof that Hart himself was actually connected. Police had to admit that even with all the evidence that they had, it did not directly, definitively point a finger at Hart. One of the biggest evidence points that they had against Hart was the shoe print. Hart, however, did not wear a size 9.5. As we all know, DNA testing was not used until the mid-1980s, so the hair follicle and bodily fluids could not be used in that manner at this time. So there was no way to know who it belonged to. As for the use of the hair sample, Hart's defense attorney discredited the use of it as forensic technique, and it was dismissed. To the shock and dismay of many people and the families of the three girls, on March 20th, 1979, jurors found Hart not guilty of the murders. Although there was not enough evidence to say for certain that he had committed the murders of Lori, Michelle, and Denise, Hart still had to return to prison for the previous convictions for his time, over 300 years for his other crimes that he still had to serve. Mayes County Police had spent their entire money and resources hunting Hart that they had nothing left to continue their investigation of the girls' murders. After researching so many old newspaper articles, I found that there are 3 other major suspects that they never followed up on. Instead, they concentrated only on Hart. Could one of these men have been the real murderer? Could Hart have been telling his defense attorney the truth? We'll never know. Either way, the families of Lori, Michelle, and Denise never received the closure they so needed. And if that wasn't enough, on June 4th in 1979, Hart, while exercising, collapsed and died from a heart attack at the age of 35. With Hart now dead, there was no way to retry him later down the road for the murders if more information or evidence were to ever come up. In 1989, the police decided, with the development of DNA testing, to test the bodily fluids found at Camp Scott. This test came back. The findings were inconclusive, meaning the authorities still had no proof one way or the other if it were Hart or someone else that had been in that tent that night. Now, you remember back where I said to remember this, it was important. I will let you pause this and read this article if you want to. In 2008, people got together, followers of the case and families, raised money and paid to have DNA testing done once again on the sample. Although the sample was stored to the best of their abilities over the years, it was too degraded to get a DNA profile from, and could not be compared to any other profiles. Today, the case is still open. There are claims that there are cover-ups, that there was more than one person involved, that they were not searching for the right person to begin with. The parents have stated that the camp was poorly run, insecure, and not a safe place. Just looking at the photos in the cabins, I myself would have had second thoughts of sending a child away to camp. How many parents actually get to see the camps that their children are going to be staying at? This brings so many questions up. Thank you for watching and listening to this week's episode. Please consider reading the book, Someone Cry for the Children, by Michael and Dick Wilkerson. Also on the video narrated by Dale Robertson and Johnny Cash by the same title. I do plan on a trip, if possible, to the area in the spring to be able to explore and to look at the area myself and to pay my respects to the lost souls of these children. Let me know what you think about this, and please feel free to look for the book and the movie. And if you've seen it or you have read it, let me know down below in the comments. Everyone, have a peaceful night. Bye-bye.